I'm going to call the meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Charlie Wetmore.
Here.
Vice Chairman Jim Flynn.
Here.
Commissioner Michael Brock.
Here.
Commissioner Rich Ford.
Here.
Commissioner Lydia DePaul. Here. Commissioner Dan Rowe.
Here.
Commissioner Will Howard.
Here. Okay. Glad everybody can make it tonight. Notice regarding adjournment. The Planning Commission will not hear new items after 9:30 p.m. unless authorized by a majority vote of the commission members present. Items which have not been heard before 9:30 p.m. may be continued to the next regular meeting or a special meeting date as determined by the commission members at that time. Do I have a motion on the minutes from May 28th?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes, and we are on to public comment. I get to read this wonderful thing. During public comment, each speaker is limited to a total of 3 minutes per meeting, regardless of whether the person is speaking on their own behalf or as an agent for others. Meeting attendees may not donate, transfer, yield, or give any or all portion of their speaking time to another person. All public comments are to be conducted from the podium and be directed to the Planning Commission as a whole and not to any member thereof. All speakers shall be mindful and respectful of those participating in or present at the meeting. Speakers shall be expected to be civil in their language and shall refrain from comment or behavior that involves disorderly speech or action, name calling, personal attacks, threats, obscene or indecent remarks, and or disruptive actions. All speakers shall confine their comments to issues under the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Speakers shall not use the public comment period to promote or advertise awards, businesses, services, goods, or candidates for public office. Any speaker that violates these rules and protocols for public comment may be ruled out of order by the presiding officer. Any person whose comments have been ruled out of order shall immediately cease and desist from further improper comments. The refusal of an individual to desist from further improper comments may subject the individual to removal from the meeting and or a citation under section 2-49 of Town Code. Fortunately, in Planning Commission, we have never come close to that, but we do have to read that now. So for those of you present, we are citizens just like you. We volunteer our time to do this. We try and do the best that we can with this. Just keep in mind, we're not here to, I don't even know what to say. No old business. New business, first item is.
Public comment.
Oh, yeah, I might want to do that.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Public comment, sorry.
Mary Murphy Guerrera.
Now, when you approach the podium, please, when you get up to the microphone, state your name and your address.
Mary Murphy Guerrera, 4 Cinnamon Fern in Fern Lakes. We live in Fern Lakes off of Burnt Church Road, and we are in opposition to the above referenced project being the Lee/Burnt Church proposal. This project immediately abuts owners in Fern Lakes and will affect their property values as well as the overall property values of Fern Lakes homes and the homes in the walk. Why did the owner annex his property to the town of Bluffton in the first place? Was it because he was unable to get a project approved by Beaufort County? This project clearly does not meet the town of Bluffton ordinances for commercial property development. And not having heard everything from the commission yet, I am not sure, as far as the zoning goes, but the project proposes a 20-foot setback when the town requires a 100-foot setback of any building, structure, pond, etc. The retention pond, which is part of the 100-foot setback requirement, is proposed to be approximately 33 feet from the Fern Lakes homeowners on Bracken Fern, so close that any large rain event could spill over onto their properties. And then please take into consideration the total impervious impact on the lot, which is less than an acre. The noise from a cafe market establishment will also adversely affect the abutters' enjoyment of their yards and make their properties less desirable. Where will the dumpsters be placed? How will trash and waste be dealt with? The traffic impact will adversely affect an already busy Burnt Church Road and affect residents entering and exiting Fern Lakes, the Walk, and Burnt Church Park, the commercial strip directly across from the Walk. Since the sidewalks that were originally promised years ago have been put on the back burner, so to speak, this development and drive-through makes any pedestrian traffic even more dangerous on Burnt Church. The town of Bluffton is responsible for assuring that any commercial development proposal meets all of the standards and ordinances that were put in place to protect residential owners from any commercial developments adversely affecting their properties. This plan, as proposed, does not meet those standards and ordinances. Therefore, we ask that you deny this project. And I submitted that, as well as my husband, Frank, who couldn't be at the meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Sandy Badowski.
And just a reminder, name and address.
Okay. Hi, good evening, and thank you. I'm Sandy Badowski, and I live at 8 Cinnamon Fern in Fern Lakes. I've been a resident of Bluffton since 1989. So you can imagine the disappointment when we found out that the 2018 sales tax, which we all paid for and voted for, is going to be no longer. We definitely need sidewalks and bike paths on that road. It's a very dangerous road, especially at night. I believe, is the fire department within the town of Bluffton on Burnt Church Road? Is that Beaufort County or is that the town of Bluffton?
I cannot address you directly, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Well, anyway, I would ask that you get the records of how many times that fire truck goes up and down Burnt Church Road every day. Constant sirens every day on Burnt Church Road. And then there's the school and the pre-K center. And then it's also an evacuation route. So we have a 2-lane road that has no bike paths, no sidewalks. It is a fire department road, a school road, and an evacuation route. So I'm asking you to please take that into consideration, and especially for those of us in Fern Lakes that try to get out onto that road every day. I really hope that you will consider being a good neighbor. I know we are in Beaufort County, so we're on the border of the town of Bluffton. So I'm hoping that the town of Bluffton will put your neighborhood hats on and please look at it from that standpoint. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Beth Mohar.
Beth Mohar, 10 Cinnamon Fern in Fern Lakes. Without repeating everything the first two public speakers have just said, I agree with everything they've said and how it affects the property values if that 121 Burnt Church cafe, market, parking space, runoff, lagoon, and so forth is developed. And another concern is since that property is owned with 2 adjacent properties next to it, that could also impact future development and more commercial businesses in that area. And I oppose, just like the other people that are going to be speaking tonight have already opposed to that development, and those that will be speaking about opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew Gajowski.
Hi, Matt Gajewski, 3 Cinnamon Fern here in Bluffton and Fern Lakes. I don't think I could say it any better than my fellow neighbors here about opposition to this particular project on 121 Burnt Church Road for all the same reasons, including the fact that one of the reasons that people buy houses in that area is because they're relatively large, heavily wooded, private. It's a nice place to live because of the privacy, and I'm concerned about this particular project setting a precedent for that entire part of Burnt Church Road. Not just the traffic increase, but also the lack of privacy and the change to those particular properties. Mine happens to butt up against another property that's on Burnt Church. So my backyard is, I love it the way it is. Obviously that's personal and private, but I'm concerned about the precedent it sets for the rest of Burnt Church Road all up and down. So I'm opposed to this project.
Trent Williamson.
Good evening, my name is Trent Williamson. I live at 4 Bracken Fern in Fern Lakes, and my property backs up directly to the site of this proposed development, 121 Burn Church. First of all, thank you to the town. You have answered a lot of questions. I've pestered you a little bit, and you've been very generous with trying to explain some inconsistent, confusing ordinances and development agreement language that I still frankly find inconsistent and confusing, but it's not your fault, and you've been very helpful to try to work with me. I'm opposed, but because it's the first reading, in the spirit of that, I want to not oppose just for the sake of it, but to ask questions and raise concerns about a project that is going to directly impact our neighborhood. The applicant describes this as a cafe market with small workstations in a park-like setting for remote workers. I think that's a co-working space. I'm not really sure what that means by that, but as someone married to a person that was a executive for a co-working space company, that is still incredibly vague and can mean a lot of things. That could be incredibly high volume, a revolving door space for people to come in and out, which would directly affect traffic, parking, and compatibility with adjacent homes. I'm also concerned about the drive-through. I have children that play in the backyard that will be directly next to this drive-through. Drive-throughs are for high volume. The cars often sit idle. They produce fumes. Those are things, of course, I'm worried about. I'm a father. This is also on an infamously dangerous road. That's not your fault. That is the Beaufort County has taken a lifetime to fix that and make sidewalks. But I'm afraid that this will increase the danger of that. And without that infrastructure improvement, I am concerned about that. Drive-throughs are to help produce volume traffic and get that in and out, which will, of course, create more. And there's no way to safely walk or bike on this road. Of course, I'm also concerned about stormwater management that I believe we need to have, but it is mere feet from our property lines. And that just, of course, raises concerns of who will manage the cleaning of it. Will it not become a mosquito farm? All those kinds of things that, of course, as property owners, we are worried about. Now, I do want to just say Fern Lakes is a community full of people who love Bluffton, who work in Bluffton. I don't think we're opposed to growth, but we are committed to making sure that the character of the neighborhood stays and that our property values are not decreased by a project. And so with that, I'm saying it doesn't have any merit to have development. However, I would love more answers. I would love to have a closer review before saying, let's just move forward. My request is that the developer and the planning department are able to work together to provide those answers and consider what it looks like to be a good neighbor so we can do the same to that owner as well. Thank you for your time and consideration, and we appreciate all that you're doing to make sure that this is under closer review. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, now on to new business. I do apologize again for that. First item on the agenda is Fifth Third Bank at May River Crossing Development Plan. A request by Angelina Makowski, BDG Architects, on behalf of the property owner, First Chatham Bank, for approval of a preliminary development plan application. The project consists of the construction of a new freestanding 2,400 square foot bank facility with associated parking, landscaping, and infrastructure. This property is within the Jones Estate, PUD, consists of 1.33 acres identified by the tax map number in this agenda, within the May River Crossing Master Plan, north of May River Road and east of May River Crossing. Mr. Frazier.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is a preliminary development plan for Fifth Third Bank at May River Crossing. As you've already stated, it's a request by Angelina Makowski of BDG Architects on behalf of First Chatham Bank for approval of a preliminary development plan. The applicant proposes the construction of a single-story freestanding 2,690 square foot bank facility. It'll have an ATM drive-through, parking, landscaping, and the associated infrastructure. It is a 1.33 acre property zoned Jones Estate PUD, and it's within the May River Crossing Master Plan. This is the location of the property as you're headed west down May River Road. This is the turn you would take into the public shopping center, and that's May River Crossing Road. It would be immediately on your right as you enter into May River Crossing Road. This is the aerial in the same location. Right above it is the Publix that everyone should be familiar with. It's a application for preliminary development plan, and is subject to the standards set forth in the Jones Estate PUD and the May River Crossing Master Plan. It is an out parcel within May River Crossing, and utilities have been stubbed to serve this site. The property is also within the highway corridor overlay and will require a certificate of appropriateness that reviews landscaping, lighting, and architecture, and that happens at time of final development plan approval. Staff comments on the preliminary development plan were reviewed at the April 30th, 2025 Development Review Committee meeting. They resubmitted on May 28th. Here's the overall master plan. The parcel we are talking about is parcel B down here in the lower, it is the southeastern corner. This is an overall master plan. It has a regional stormwater plan as well as utilities stubbed to these out parcels. We've got Publix located here, Starbucks is out here, there's associated commercial around the corner right here. And of course, this is at the corner of 170 and Highway 46. This is the site plan. This is a little bit closer view of the site plan. As I already stated, coming in off of May River Road, you can access the proposed bank development with immediate right turn. They are providing, let me check my numbers here. They're providing 15 parking spaces, 12 are required. Here is the drive-through. It's a two-sided drive-through. The outside is ATM only. The side closer to the bank is also a teller drive-through, and there'll be an underground pneumatic tube going to the bank from there. The second access point actually comes straight out here to the north, where you would have to make a left turn and circle back around, because if you make a right, you're actually wrapping around the back of the Publix where it's truck loading. Bank site itself is 2,609 square feet. There's a couple magnolias that have always intended to be saved on the property. I think they're both 12-inch magnolias that they are being saved with this proposed development. The 50-foot buffer off of May River Road is provided here. They've actually got a 75-foot setback. Planning Commission shall consider the criteria set forth in 310-3A of the UDO. These are the criteria. Criteria number 2 is one that I'm going to point out. It is the proposed development shall be in conformance with any approved development agreement, PUD concept plan, PUD master plan, subdivision plan, or any other agreements or plans that are applicable. Staff finds that the preliminary development plan is in conformance with the Jones Estate PUD agreement and concept plan. However, the proposed development plan does not conform to the approved May River Crossing master plan requirement that any parking beyond the minimum amount required will be designed as pervious parking. That being the case, there would be 3 required parking spaces that would be pervious. That's an easy fix for the applicant, but the reason I bring it up is because we're going to have it as a recommended condition of approval. Planning Commission action, you can approve the application as submitted by the applicant. You can approve the application with conditions. You can table the application, or you can deny the application as submitted. Staff recommendation, we don't recommend that you approve it as submitted, but should the Planning Commission choose to approve the application with conditions, town staff finds that the conditions should be met prior to final development plan approval. That would be all proposed on-site parking more than the required 18 spaces will be designed as pervious parking at time of final development plan submittal. That should be 15. It'll require 3 parking spaces. And so I have the suggested motion here. Let me know if you have any questions for me. The applicant is present. So if you have any questions for the applicant, you can come up and
Would the applicant like to speak, or would?
Good evening, Brett Neverell, Infinity Engineering Group, 1208 East Kennedy Boulevard, Tampa, Florida, 33602. We acknowledge the condition two regarding the additional 3 spaces to be converted to pervious. We're actually in process of doing that today because we're going to submit Friday for the other procedure we're doing for appropriateness. So we are in agreement with that, and we do respectfully request approval tonight so we can move forward with the condition of the pervious pavement. And I can address any questions if you have it.
I would encourage you to do more than just the 3, as the May River watershed is critical here. So, start down here. Any questions, comments?
It's low impact development. I mean,
No pervious parking was my concern. That was my only question that I was going to have tonight.
yeah, we will add it, sir, yes.
Mr. Howard, anything?
I don't have any comments.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Fraser, you want to pull up that suggested? Somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to conditionally approve the Fifth Third Bank at May River Crossing preliminary development plan, subject to appeasing the required pervious parking for the final development plan submittal.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 2, the Bluffton Bookshop Development Plan. A request by Jonathan Marsh of Whitmer Jones Kiefer Limited on behalf of the property owners, Jamie and, is it Allen Oliver, for approval of a preliminary development plan application. The project consists of the renovation of the existing 1,769 square foot residential structure into a proposed bookstore and icery with associated parking and infrastructure. The property is zoned Neighborhood Conservation Historic District and consists of approximately 0.3 acres as identified by the tax map number in the agenda and located at 89 Bridge Street in Old Town Bluffton Historic District. Mr. Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a preliminary development plan for the Bluffton Bookshop located at 89 Bridge Street. It's a request by Jonathan Marsh of Whitmer Jones Kiefer on behalf of Jamie and Alan Oliver for approval of a preliminary development plan. They are proposing the renovation of the existing 1,769 square foot residential structure into a commercial bookstore and icery with associated parking and infrastructure. There's an existing carport on the property that they are proposing to demo. The applicant proposes, no changes are proposed for the garage at the rear of the property. It is a 0.3 acre property zone neighborhood conservation historic district located at 89 Bridge Street in the Old Town Historic District. Here's the location of the property. It is actually adjacent to Oyster Factory Park parking lot, if you're familiar with that, at the corner of Wharf and Bridge Street. There's an aerial. Subject property is located within the Old Town Bluffton Historic District and is subject to the standards set forth in the UDO. The required 22-foot wide drive apron will be coordinated and installed as part of the town's Bridge Street streetscape public project. It hasn't been approved yet. It's going through the approval process right now. It's a public project to improve the streetscape along Bridge Street. The existing drive connection to Oyster Factory Park cannot currently be used as an access to the property. Let me see if, hard to see on here, I'll point it out when we get to the site plan. The proposed development requires 4 parking spaces and the application is providing 6 spaces. Property will require a certificate of appropriateness historic district that will be reviewing landscaping, lighting, and architecture. Staff comments on the preliminary development plan were reviewed at the May 21, 2025 Development Review Committee meeting. A resubmittal, including a response to comments, was received on May 28, 2025. This is worth reading through because I don't think everyone is familiar with what an icery is. So a 109 square foot icery is proposed along the western side of the building. My understanding is an icery is it's a unique, it was created and put into the UDO to allow for an icery in a different development in the past. So it sits in the UDO, and it is defined as a retail business that is primarily engaged in the sale of non-food or beverage-related goods or merchandise, but that sells coffee, tea, non-alcoholic beverages, pastries, confections, ice cream, gelato, shaving cream, not shaving cream, but shaved ice and/or frozen refreshments intended for direct consumption by the purchaser that are served but not cooked or substantially prepared on the premises of the establishment. An icery is only permitted as a conditional accessory use to the retail. The proposed icery would be less than 25% of the main retail business's heated square footage, and what they are proposing is the retail business principally engaged in the sale of the goods or merchandise may have an icery as a conditional accessory use. No more than 25% of the retail business heated square footage is allocated for the icery, and no outdoor dining areas with seating and tables for customers may be provided. In other words, you walk in, you purchase it, you got to eat it off site. Or standing on. Yes. Here is the site plan, a closer view of the site plan. So this is the existing building. Coming in with a 22-foot drive that'll accommodate two-way traffic to the parking in the rear. The carport that would be demoed sits in this southeastern corner of the property, and parking spaces are provided here. The handicap space is provided here with ADA access to the building. This storage space, they're not proposing to do anything with it. The icery would be located here. Just to the west of the property is the Oyster Factory Park parking lot. This is a gravel drive that is a connection between the two. This lot over here, the parking lot itself, is actually owned by Beaufort County. As of now, it can't be used as an access point, nor can the parking be used in association with the icery. They are one thing that we didn't catch prior to preparing the staff report was that they're proposing sidewalk pavers outside of the front door of the building. There's actually a Bridge Street sidewalk that's just north of these pavers, but these are pavers that provide access walking around the building. And actually the majority of the pavers across the frontage of Bridge Street sit within the right-of-way. This is SCDOT right-of-way. They would not be able to put that in without an approved encroachment permit from DOT. I believe DOT would be more preferable to just having the standard 4 or 5 foot stub sidewalk that gets you out to their existing sidewalk on the drive. Same thing here. It is subject to the criteria set forth in section 310.3A. These are the criteria. Planning Commission may approve as submitted, approve the application with conditions, table the application, or deny the application as submitted by the applicant. Town staff, per the packet, we recommend that the Planning Commission approve the application as submitted, and that is a suggested motion. I want to take into consideration what I pointed out as the development that they're proposing in the right-of-way. And I'll open it up to questions, and the applicant, I believe, is here. Yes.
Would you like to come up?
Jonathan Marsh, Whitmer Jones Keeper. Thank you guys for being here this evening, and Dan, thank you for pointing out the pavers in the right-of-way. We've actually already been discussing, and we are going to essentially eliminate the pavers within the right-of-way. At the very least, we might come in and go that route of the 5-foot wide walkway connection centered on the front door. But aside from that, if there are any questions, we can answer any.
Start down here this time.
Yeah, I've got a question, probably, I think for Dan. A question on the 22-foot, the new driveway apron. Right? So that's an existing, it's just a dirt gravel and drive right now, right? And it's going to be increased to a 22-foot drive aisle.
Yep.
that's a requirement
And
like that.
your statement was that the town of Bluffton is going to pay for that improvement to construct the new 22-foot, appears to be tabby shell concrete apron. I'm confused as to if that Bridge Street streetscape project has already been approved.
It has not.
In the
It's going
approval,
through the
so
approval,
is
right.
this being considered now in the Bridge Street streetscape prior to the approval of this?
I had the project manager, Constance, had come over to me and said, I was out on the site walking, for the public project, she's a project manager. She said while she was out there, the owners were there, they had a discussion about their proposed development in the bookstore. And at the time between the two, the discussion resulted in Constance thinking it would make sense that while we're doing the improvements, we would provide the improvement of the 22-foot drive apron. It would remain, only improvements would still be within the right-of-way, SCDOT right-of-way. It wouldn't encroach onto the property itself. She said that was something they can do as a field decision while they're out there. So really, I mean, you bring up a good point, which is that would essentially be the town bearing the cost of the improvement. I think her point was along the south side, what's being proposed is to fix and facilitate drives and any problems with that existing sidewalk as part of the streetscape project. I think they're minimal in this area, but Constance came to me as project manager and said that's something we can provide at the time of the project. Certainly I can carry on continue a discussion with her on how that's going to work exactly. The only thing she brought up was that the encroachment permit itself would have to be provided by the applicant or the applicant's agent. They would have to do the correspondence with DOT.
Okay.
Mr. Marsh, could you just indicate where the entrance would be for the ADA accessible parking spot? How would they walk in?
Yeah, so there is an entrance right here, and the current intent is, this is an open-ended floor plan, so they'd be able to access through the front of the property. And, since we will be removing the pavers from the front here, originally that was our ADA access to the icery. We would essentially tie into the side here and allow them to wheel around.
Thank you.
I had a question for Dan. Under the commercial use, is allowable use rental equipment, something associated with the river, like rental of paddle boards or whatever? Can they use that storage and use this front to store as a rental facility?
I don't think I think rental equipment would be an allowed use, but that's not what they're proposing.
It is allowable. It is allowable.
I would have to look that up to make
okay.
sure, but I think it is.
I didn't-
There wouldn't be a reason
Okay.
for it not to be. And your question is, could they actually use that storage unit back there as a business itself that's renting out? Not associated with what they're proposing right now, which is a bookstore and icery.
Are we going to see this one more time? Or is this the
You
final?
will not see this. It gets a COFA that goes through the HPRC and HPC process.
Okay, thank you.
But it will go through historic preservation.
Final. And I think if the storage area were to become retail in its own right, we'd have to revisit parking and all that.
Part of my reason for asking.
Right. And good catch.
Dan, do we have enough, are all the planting beds and screening and everything per the UDO for commercial?
We do. Let me see if I have. What they're providing more than 75% of
Is there
canopy coverage.
more asking about the size of the plantings around the foundation? Is there a minimum dimension for those that they have to meet?
Well, they did point out, and I didn't point it out in slide, but they are actually providing less than 8 foot in this location. And the reason they're providing less than 8 foot is to accommodate this 22-foot drive. They've mentioned that in their narrative. We're asking for the 22-foot drive, and it's an existing building, so we're acceptable in them having less than 8 feet in that location. The opposite side here, where they have pavers as part of their ADA access, that's the reason why they're not providing the 8 foot.
It was parking and it's been answered, so. ADA.
It was what?
ADA.
Parking.
Parking.
The only, well, one question, is the drive still gravel or is it paved?
Gravel.
Okay. Because same pervious concern that we had with the previous applicant. And then the only other thing I have is a strong suggestion that I voiced in DRC, and that is to put landscaping along the property line with Oyster Factory Park, or you're going to find out pretty quick that people are going to park in your side yard. Because when parking spots are gone, they're going to park wherever they can, and if there isn't a barrier of some type, you know, you can still have a nice entry with the sidewalk and so on, but just strong suggestion. Okay, I think that's all we had for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Frazier, do you want to pull up the staff recommendation? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Bluffton Bookshop preliminary development plan application with the condition of the pavers. I think they already made that comment, but the pavers in the right of way omitted.
Second.
Discussion? I only have a point of clarification. We might want to make that pavers omitted or a encroachment permit by DOT.
Sounds good.
I guess I'd like to make that amendment. Do we have a second to the amendment?
Second.
All in favor of the, discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All in favor, any further discussion on the original motion? All in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? Seeing as none opposed, it passes unanimously. Thank you. And Mr. Frazier, you're staying up here, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay, item number 3, I think there are a couple people interested in the crowd here. 121 Bird Church Development Plan, a request by Anthony Morris of McCod One Consulting Services, LLC, on behalf of the property owner, My Nash Realty Corp., for approval of a preliminary development plan application. The project consists of a 4,464 square foot commercial building with drive-through, parking, and associated infrastructure. The property is zoned neighborhood core and consists of approximately 0.83 acres identified by the tax map in this agenda, number in this agenda, and located within the Highway Corridor Overlay District. Before we get into this, Mr. Frazier, just so there's an understanding in the room of the process, this is a development plan preliminary approval that's being requested tonight. After this, it would go for Highway Corridor Overlay District approval, assuming it moved forward, and I'm not saying it will or it won't, but if it moves forward, it goes for HCOD approval, which looks at architecture, setbacks, landscape, lighting for approval. And then if all that comes through and gets approved, then it goes to final, which is it's still a public meeting, but it's more with staff with Development Review Committee.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Or when they come through for the COFA HCO, it goes to the Development Review Committee, and then it comes forward to the body here for approval.
And then final goes through Development Review Committee.
Yes. Right, after stormwater permit is issued.
Okay.
Okay.
Just want to make sure there was an understanding of the process.
There's several steps in this process because they are within the Highway Corridor Overlay. This is a preliminary development plan for 121 Bird Church Road. It's a request by Anthony Morse of McCad One Consulting Services LLC on behalf of My Nash Realty Corporation for approval of a preliminary development plan. The applicant proposes the construction of a 4,464 square foot commercial building with a drive-through, parking, and associated infrastructure. The 0.83 acre property is zoned neighborhood core located east of Burnt Church Road and south of Fern Lakes Drive. The applicant proposes a lot line revision. I'll show you the location of that. And that would result in a new acreage of approximately 1.08 acres. Here is the subject property located on Burnt Church Road. This is an aerial of the property where we're showing the subject property is two parcels. It's actually this parcel and approximately about 25% of the adjacent parcel after they do the lot line revision. Subject property is currently vacant, located within neighborhood core zoning district and subject to the standards set forth in the UDO. The property is in the highway corridor overlay and will require a certificate of appropriateness, HCOD, reviewing landscaping, lighting, and architecture, as mentioned by the chairman. The applicant proposed a 4,464 square foot commercial building, including the possibility of a 1,000 square foot restaurant with the associated driveways, access, parking, utilities, and stormwater infrastructure. Proposed development requires 18 parking spaces and 18 are being provided. The proposed development requires 20% open space, and they're providing approximately 40% open space. This property was annexed into the, get to this. Property provides a required 50-foot landscape buffer from Burnt Church Road. However, the required 10-foot front setback off of the 50-foot buffer is not provided. And per table 583B and footnote 2 says that any building setbacks need to come off of any buffers that are required buffers. Per the zoning and annexation development agreement, when this property was annexed into the town, the subject property requires a 100-foot commercial building setback along the eastern property line and a 10-foot residential vegetated buffer and building setback along the eastern and northern property lines. That agreement was included as an attachment in the packet. The plan does not include 8 feet of foundation plantings as required by UDO section 537E. Staff comments on the preliminary development plan were reviewed at the May 21, 2025 Development Review Committee meeting. A resubmittal including a response to comments was received on May 28, 2025. This is just a graphic showing Exhibit A was included in that development agreement that was included as an attachment in the packet. This 100-foot buffer is called out as it's a 100-foot buffer off the rear line away from the residences. Some of the residents that are speaking tonight have spoke tonight. This 100-foot buffer is called out as a commercial building setback buffer, meaning that the parking that they're showing and the stormwater that they're showing would be allowed within this 100-foot buffer. But if the building, the development itself could not encroach into that 100-foot building setback. Here's the site plan. Let me get a closer look to it. This is entering off of Burnt Church Road. The drive-through would be here. The dumpster is located here at the end of the drive-through, so they would be coming in here, circling out. Parking is provided here. Stormwater preliminary location for it is here. They would have to go through a stormwater permit. This is the existing property line, if you can see my cursor. And what they would be proposing is a lot line revision to where this would be the new lot line, taking it out of the adjacent property owned by the same owner. In essence, this area here would be added to this parcel. It allows for the drive to come in and the parking in the building. Handicap parking is here with sidewalk access to the building. Same criteria, section 310.3. Section 310.3A, the finding is the proposed preliminary site plan does not conform with the UDO table 583B as previously mentioned, requiring the 10-foot building setback. from the 50-foot buffer line. I'll go back real quick and illustrate that. Right now, here's their 50-foot setback. The building is essentially like a zero building setback. It's not coming off of this buffer. It needs to come off 10 feet. I think the site plan as shown now can accommodate that. They can literally move everything back 10 feet. The preliminary site plan does not conform with section 537E requiring a foundation planting area at least 8 feet wide maintained around all structures. And the second criteria is proposed development shall be in conformance with any approved development agreement, PUD master plan subdivision, or any other agreement. So there is another agreement. It's the annexation development agreement between the town when it was brought in. That agreement required a 10-foot residential vegetated buffer and building setback line along the eastern and northern boundaries. I'll go back real quick. That would be along the northern boundary and the eastern boundary, a 10-foot vegetated buffer. So that can be provided even with the layout here. It's just not shown on the plan. It's something that the applicant would be able to provide, I believe. Planning Commission has the authority to approve the application as submitted, approve the application with conditions, table the application, or deny the application as submitted. Town staff finds that the proposed development does not meet the requirements of criteria 1 and 2, and therefore town staff does not recommend approval as submitted. Should the Planning Commission choose to approve the application with conditions, town staff finds the following conditions should be met prior to final development plan approval to be in accordance with the requirements of section 310.3A. And that would be 1, provide a foundation planting area of at least 8 feet around all structures. 2, provide a 10-foot front setback from the 50-foot buffer line. And 3, provide a 10-foot residential vegetative buffer and building setback line along the eastern and northern boundaries of the property. And I have a suggested motion, and I will open it up for questions. And the applicant is here.
Would the applicant like to speak?
I just want to. My name is Jack McCashian. I live 101 Buena Vista Court in Isla Morada, Port Antigua. I left 6:30 this morning. I drove straight up to make the meeting 6 p.m. I just want to introduce myself to the neighbors. I do care. It is my property. I am on top of it. I want to make sure that I'm a homeowner as well. I understand everybody's needs. I will do whatever necessary to be done to make sure it fits everybody's need, especially the neighbors. So I'm here personally, and I drove 9.5 hours straight. I couldn't take a flight to get here, so I'm here. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
I have some questions later too, as we progress. Dan, I've got a question about the 50-foot highway corridor buffer and where that originated from.
This parcel is actually designated, when it got brought in, it got designated as highway corridor buffer overlay. And then also, I think there's a UDO section specific to adjacent street buffers, and this is required. This, along with several other streets within the town, requires a 50-foot buffer. Based on that UDO, it specifically calls out the Burnt Church Street outside of the historic district shall provide a 50-foot buffer.
And that buffer is the hierarchy of the road because of Burnt Church Road, and is that the hierarchy of the road the reason why that buffer is 50 feet?
I don't know the background on what, well, there's a 50-foot buffer just based on it being in the highway corridor overlay. But I think the intent of it was to provide it in the same way that a buffer is provided along the other highway corridors, is to provide a buffer between the street, the road itself, and the buildings.
Second question, is it possible to not require that extra 10 feet, which would push that building further back into the property?
It's in the UDO. I mean, it's called out specifically as a footnote to the table saying, and it states that the building setback is in addition to any required buffers. So it's pretty clear that it would have to come off an additional 10 feet. And I realize, and I know where you're going with it, that's 10 feet closer to the residences.
Right. And the only way to go around that would be an appeal? Variance?
It is. Yeah.
Or you could reduce the footprint of the building.
How many times have I said that?
Yeah. That's all the questions are.
Dan, are they meeting the exact parking count? Do they
Yes.
Okay. And is it, I'm sorry if it's in here, I just don't see it on the plan I'm looking
I
at.
think it's 18 required and 18 provided.
And the parking and the drive aisles and everything, is that all impervious?
I don't know if they called out whether it's a gravel drive or a paved driveway and parking.
That's what we call a true grid. It's a very porous parking lot. It's similar to.
If you don't mind, you can introduce yourself as well. My name's Tony Morris. I'm the engineer on the project. It's a very porous product that actually will take the first 3.1 inches of rain off the surface. And this particular property is in a sandy soil, so any water that hits that surface will go directly into the ground.
You got type A soils, right?
Excuse me?
I'll just confirm you have type A soils, and Kevin confirmed that, yes, you do.
Yeah, this is a preliminary set on my part. I did some arguing to determine what the soils were. And of course, we'll have a full source report before I can determine how deep that sand is and how much water it will take.
Dan, they have a 20-foot setback shown on the rear in the plan. Is that applicable to?
I think that was taken from the UDO, but it's not applicable because we have that development agreement that provides the building setback.
Okay. And the stormwater pond and the parking, all of that is permitted to go beyond setbacks?
It's permitted to be where it's located now. It's going to change. I think you already have had some correspondence with our stormwater department.
Correct, yeah. If the soils are what I think, yeah, it may be just a lagoon where all the water goes in and goes back in the ground.
That's it for right now. Thank you.
Dan, I have a question for you. On the drive-through, does that meet the requirements, or is it, you just tell me that? It says 10 feet.
Oh, 10 feet in width? I don't think there's a problem with that. I don't think we call out a specific width for the drive-through, and that's probably typical drive-through width. It's located and oriented in such a way that the driver's side would be up against the window, so rather than coming through in the other direction where it'd be the passenger up against the building.
Just wanted to ask. Seemed a little tight in that area, that's all.
Yeah.
I've got a question in the lady. We can't take questions from the audience. We're not allowed to. I apologize. We'll start with Mr.
Yeah, I want to go back to a few things. The drive-through, what's the, how many cars can you queue in that drive-through?
I tried to scale it. It looked like it's probably 5, depending on where the window's located. Before, if a 6 car were to be queued up there, it would be in the way of the parking drives.
And I asked this before, but was there a traffic assessment provided by the applicant?
There was not.
But that's required, right, for any development within the town?
We determined that with the size of this project that we weren't going to ask for a traffic assessment. We can do that now.
but it is, there's a UDO requirement that says all development should provide a traffic assessment.
Right.
Right?
And with-
And
yeah,
this
an
15
assessment.
parking spaces doesn't take into account the number of trips the drive-through is there so that you don't have to park.
Correct.
So you've got 15 spaces, and in addition to that, you have how many trips are you gonna have with people visiting to go through the drive-through? So, I think that at minimum, they should provide a traffic assessment.
Right, and what we would do with that, they would provide it runs the numbers on trips generated and gives a recommendation coming out of it. And we review it and we make a determination on whether we would need a full-blown traffic impact analysis from that. I don't know what type of off-site traffic improvements could happen with this development, but you can definitely condition the PDP with that.
Okay. Let's see, you've already mentioned the foundation plantings. Also, in looking at this, if I were to review this, I would have some concern I did see an exhibit, the area between the drive-through and the parking was actually shown as fully landscaped. But then you have a small sidewalk that takes you across the drive-through, but you have no way to access that sidewalk because you're blocked by parked cars. So I would like to see a sidewalk added to take those people that are parking access the sidewalk so that they can then access the sidewalk to cross the drive-through safely.
Yeah, just for clarification, where we're referring to, I believe we're referring to if you were to park in these parking spaces here, you're not able to get out to a sidewalk that takes you to this sidewalk to the front door.
Right.
You would actually have to walk in the driving lane to get to it. Okay. And remedy that would be providing a sidewalk that runs across the front of these parking spaces?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then lastly, and tell me if I'm getting ahead of myself, but if we are going to make a conditional motion, it seems to me there's going to be possibly several conditions of approval. I would suggest that we not make a conditional motion that takes this conditions to be approved at the time of final development plan. I would make a condition that a motion that these conditions be provided for review of staff prior to approval of the preliminary plan. If we condition it now, they're going to go for a COFA next week without seeing the site plan with all the new conditions that we're conditioning. Does that make sense?
Well, I always review the stormwater submittal to make sure that it matches whatever was approved at the preliminary development plan. But you're right, they do have a COFA associated with this.
I'm just saying I would feel more comfortable making an approval with several conditions if staff were going to look at that resubmittal and make sure that it was all resubmitted as conditioned by us before you approve the preliminary plan.
I think I know where you're going, if I may. Kevin Eicher, Director of Growth Management, for anyone in the audience there. I understand what you're going for. If you want, what we can do is make it a conditional approval, give them the letter, have them resubmit their plans. We will confirm that they've met those items before we let it move forward to stormwater.
Right.
Yes, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
Chairman Delcar?
No, it's probably not possible, but has the applicant done anything to see if they could reconfigure the stormwater pond so it's not abutting right up against that back setback?
Got the question was asking about the location, and that I would assume is a proposed location for it.
Yes,
that's
it's
subject to
proposed
change.
location for it. You know, that's, in general, that's about the only place it can be put at this point in time.
It has to be configured that way.
You know, until I get a soil report, I can't determine how big, if that's the size it's gonna be. I would assume it's gonna be smaller from what I've shown in my design, on the, compliance calculator. So it should be a little bit smaller than that, because we're only dealing with, the water for the building itself. The rest of the water will be going into the soils and stuff.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, you're proposing an infiltration area, not a stormwater pond. right?
Lots of infiltration, yes, sir.
We'll hit the traffic impact analysis.
So all those notes are. Trying to think the best way to hit this. We hit sidewalk from parking. We hit a tight turn into a drive-through. Coming back to the map. Hold the map up for a second, please. Sure. We've got a tight turn to a drive-through where if we have more than 5 cars, it's gonna stack back to Burn Church Road. There's no doubt in my mind about that. We've got buffer issues. We have no solid, anything on traffic impact. I'll pause for a second. That item alone, I'm not comfortable moving this forward without us seeing what that traffic impact is gonna be, from a professional.
It would be a traffic assessment. It's kind of like a one-pager where they look up the trips generated by the project and it's to inform staff on the impact it would have on the adjacent road.
Understood.
And then if it could lead to us asking for a full-blown traffic impact analysis.
Well, and knowing that road and knowing what this drawing looks like, that I'm fairly certain is where it would end up having to go. I think we're again looking at a project that we're trying to fit too much onto a property. This is 4,400 square feet, a drive-through. It's like every square inch that could be put on there has been put on there. It's a 1-story, not a 2-story. Maybe it's a smaller footprint as a 2-story. You know, I don't have anything legally to stand on this, but a drive-through in that location scares the hell out of me. Scares the hell out of me. And then you take the way it's designed. Think of some of these daycares that we've approved, where they've told us it won't back up out on the road and we're dealing with issues. Think of Hilton Head Christian Academy that wasn't supposed to back up on the road. It's backing up on the road. Think of these other ones that, and I just gut, it's going to back up onto Bird Church Road and we're gonna have issues. And this is an area of the town where we're adjacent to the county. We've got to work with the county. We've got to work. Is that a DOT road or is that a?
It's a DOT.
Well, either way, we have to work. with
DOT
other
road, it was a county project to widen it.
Mr. Thornton, yeah, I'm sorry.
Hang on. I'll let you speak in a second, okay? But there are a lot of things here that personally, and I'm one of 7, I say this all the time, but personally, I'm not comfortable at this point in time without seeing it redesigned. Not that I don't trust staff, just there's so much going on here. It reminds me of those of you, those of you commissioners that were here with the big blue marble, we had to have them come back because there was so much going on. And I understand you drove a long way to be here tonight, but we are charged with making what's best for the town. I personally also have an issue, and there's nothing I can do about this, but I have an issue with moving a lot line, which is a perception of just moving things to get as much as you can in there. It's your property, you have a right to develop your property, but those are concerns that I share with my fellow commissioners as we kind of go towards wherever we're going. Now, if you wanted to speak to a couple of issues, if you think it would help us, I'd be more than happy for us to hear you on that. We aren't going to turn it into an ongoing discussion, but yeah.
The major issue is the drive-through, and I can relate to what you're saying. I can understand what you're saying, and I am concerned about the traffic issue. We can eliminate the drive-through. We can take that completely out. On my end, as the owner of the property, but again, what's going on here, they can figure out the formula. I'm fine with that. Doesn't have to be drive-through. Absolutely not. My objective to be here is to make things to work, that it's working for everyone. There's no hiccups for anyone. So if the drive-through, it's an issue, we can take it out. Doesn't have to be drive-through, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
It's up to commission as a whole now. Do we want to try and work through a series of conditions and follow what Chairman Howard was saying about having staff conditioned to do it before it comes back to HCOD and it's approved as preliminary and comes back as HCOD? Or do we want to see if we can pause this for a month and bring it back for us to see here? And I'm not, it's not one person's decision. It's trying to get the feel for how does commission feel.
I had one quick question. It was a concern of one of the speakers. Dan, is this, there's no sidewalk all over the street, and I know there's no sidewalk down Burt Church. Is this something where we can require pedestrian access, knowing that in the future can?
I know there was, I don't know if it was, the county had a plan that once the transportation sales tax got shot down, they can't afford to do it. I think they've pulled it, put it on hold, but it was showing a pedestrian path, I think, on the opposite side of the road. I don't think it was on both sides of the road, and I don't think you can condition this with the sidewalk going across the front of it. That's not tying into anything else at this location.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Go ahead.
Dan, can you review the options again? Options are to approve with conditions, deny, or table,
Table the application by the applicant.
or withdrawn, right?
Which would have to start the process all over.
Right.
Commissioner Wetmore, with the idea of possibly taking out the drive-through, I don't know what this looks like. I'd be more inclined to table.
That's what I was going to say. Is the applicant interested in tabling this? Because it has to come from you and get the changes that you've heard from the commissioner.
So let's get a feel for the temperature. Commissioners, if you could let us know, kind of just a quick informal poll, are you more comfortable with moving forward and putting conditions on it and letting staff take it from here, or are you more comfortable with, and we're going to have to give clear direction if we go this route of specific instructions and asking the applicant to table it for a month? I'm going to start on your end.
Of course you are.
Yep. I'm left-handed. I always look left.
I think there's a lot of items here that could be worked through with additional planning, site planning. I think we're trying to work through too much if we try to put conditions on this and approve it. I trust staff, but I think there's a lot of site planning that could be done here that can make this work with the size of the building. So I don't feel confident in trying to make it work with conditions right now.
I agree with that, and if the applicant, since they've stated that they're wanting to be good neighbors and are amenable to kind of working through things, it might be a chance also for you to meet with some of your neighbors and stakeholders and see if there's anything else that could be considered, not that we can require you to do, but just whether it's a fence or other landscaping or certain things that we may be able to incorporate to make everybody happy with the project.
I agree with both.
Echo the same comments.
Yes.
I agree. I would ask, Kevin, can you just remind us of the actual process that needs to happen here, please?
So obviously the applicant is the one that would have to state that they're willing to table this. However, I would just ask that you provide direction on what you're requesting. Because as of right now, if you just make a motion to table, that doesn't give staff a charge as to what we need to be working on with the applicants.
Right, and that's why I said we're gonna have to be clear and specific if we go down this route. I think it's pretty clear to the applicant now where it's gonna go if we're forced to make a decision, tonight. And we also have offered in the past to have a couple of commission members meet with the applicant prior to it coming back to us to try and help give direction. I will open that up. If any commission members might be willing to do that, we can have that discussion afterwards. Let me ask the applicant, are you willing to table it with specific instructions from us on what we would like to see updated or changed?
Yes.
Okay, so then, remind me, Kevin, the applicant just tables it, we don't vote on him tabling it, correct?
They request to table it, then y'all make the motion.
Okay, so he's requested tabling, do we have a motion to table this?
So moved.
Seconds. Okay, moved and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, now let's take 5 or 10 minutes here and let's discuss the things that are concerning us. I know, number one, I heard from Lydia a suggestion of meeting with the neighbors. This is a suggestion, not a requirement, but it has a lot more weight, even though, as they've said, they're not technically in the town, they're adjacent to the town, and we all want to be good neighbors. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a couple of conversations tonight before you leave, if you're not falling asleep yet.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I've been trying to collect some of these items.
Okay.
Help to summarize some of your thoughts. Number one was the discussion of the drive-through being removed. The applicant has kind of stated that. We'll work on adjusting that. The access for the parking lot, just to make sure that there's a clear path, depending on how that aligns. With that is also the crosswalk. Well, obviously the drive-through is now removed, so we don't have to worry about that, but then access for that parking lot, the walkways, making sure everything is contiguous, potential for additional buffering on certain areas. Also the location of the storm pond, discussion of its current configuration. It just shows as a rectangle right now. It's also conceptual, but how is if there's a possibility of potentially incorporating that or adjusting the location of that storm pond.
Addition of the buffers to the side and the back is required. Also,
Are measured, setbacks are measured from buffers, so they're.
The setbacks, and obviously we'll be adjusting, obviously with the removal of the drive-through, the building can easily move and provide that 10-foot.
but I was talking about the 10-foot on the east and the north.
Yes.
But also traffic analysis.
Traffic analysis, yes. Assessment.
Traffic assessment, and there is I can't remember what the threshold is, but it's a minimum number of trips that would trigger a TIA, right?
50 peak.
Yeah. 50 peak hour trips.
Yeah.
Are we missing anything in directions?
No,
Kevin,
Mr.
thank you.
Iker, I appreciate you picking up the piece about you could reconfigure that B&P,
And obviously the drive-through issue, that would adjust any potential traffic.
which takes it a little bit, maybe it takes it a little bit further away from the neighbors.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, can I add one more thing?
yeah. Well, that's why we're having the discussion.
There's a couple live oaks on the north side of the property, front corner of the building, side of the building, back parking lot. Some consideration to those live oak trees in the site planning.
Yeah. We love our live oaks. Now, please, just so we all understand, this is not us saying that we are going to rubber stamp and approve it when it comes back before us. These are things that we would like to see. There may be some more massaging when it comes back before us. To the community that's here, development happens. I just had some development go on near my house that I wasn't thrilled with, but let's see if we can come up with something that everybody's, it was told me once, sometimes the best solution is something where nobody's happy, but everybody's satisfied. So let's see if we can come up with something. We cannot hold a developer up just because people are stomping their feet, but you've got a developer here who seems willing to have the discussions and make the changes and be a responsible developer. So hopefully that ends up being true. But thank you.
Thank you.
And time to move on. Item number 4, Chase Bank, Belfair Village, Certificate of Appropriateness, Highway Corridor Overlay District. A request by Dynamic Engineering Consultants, PC, on behalf of owner Jane Cooper, LLC, for a review of a Certificate of Appropriateness, HCOD. The project consists of the renovation of the existing restaurant to a bank with drive-through and associated parking, landscaping, and infrastructure. The property consists of .77 acres, identified by the tax member in this agenda, within the Belfair Planned Unit Development located at 15 Town Drive. Mr. Sam, and as you're leaving, if you would, just try and keep quiet and we'll shut that door. Then you can talk freely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Oh, this is Sam's first presentation.
Yep.
So
I'm Sam Barrow. I'm the new senior planner for the town of Bluffton, Growth Management Department. So a little less pressure now. Thanks for that. So this evening I'll be presenting the application for certificate of appropriateness for the Highway Corridor Overlay District for Chase Bank. This applies only to lighting, landscaping, and architecture, as you well know. Myself squared away here. All right, so the applicant, Dynamic Engineering Consultants and property owner Jane Cooper LLC, requests the Planning Commission approve the following application. A certificate of appropriateness Highway Corridor Overlay District to allow renovation of an existing restaurant to a bank with a drive-through, associated parking, landscaping, and infrastructure. This property is zoned Belfair PUD and consists of approximately 0.77 acres, identified as R610031000 1085-000. This is the location. If you're familiar with the current Chow Daddy's location, it's located at 15 Town Drive in the vicinity of the intersection of Highway 278 or Fording Island Road and Simmonsville Road, between Southern Oak Dental and the IHOP restaurant. Anybody not familiar with that location? Okay, good. A summary of major changes here. Again, this mouse is working, to the right is IHOP, to the left is Southern Oak Dental, to the north is Town Drive, and to the south is Fording Island Road or 278. Proposed major changes are reconstructing the dumpster enclosure here in the back, removing a rear storage room, removing the roof-mounted mechanicals, installing ground-mounted mechanicals with screening, converting a drive-through window to a drive-up ATM, removing a roof covering, and replacing outdoor seating area with landscaping. So the front elevation, the one that's facing 278 or Fording Island Road, proposed changes are to remove the covered seating area, which is here in the orange, replace with a landscaping buffer. Second is to remove a door and replace with a window. So currently there is a door located here. You can't see it in the photo, but it is located here on the facade. Take that door out and replace it with a window that matches the other ones. And finally, to alter the parapet shape, currently it's more of a rounded shape, and now they want to square it off and remove the sign, obviously. Next, for the rear, this faces Town Drive. Proposed changes are to remove the rear addition. So if you look at the photo, that's this here, this whole lower building. Remove these rooftop mechanicals here. Add the ground level mechanicals and screening where the lower building was. Add the safety railing here along the top. Remove this door, if you can see it here in the photo, this door, and replace it with a window. Remove this window that's beside the door, and shorten these overhangs along the side to be flush with the roof. So if you look here, we are shortening this one and this one actually along the other elevation. and completely getting rid of this one. All right, to the right, this elevation faces the IHOP restaurant. So along this side, we are improving the ADA accessibility here along the front sidewalk, altering the parapet shape to match the front. So again, this is rounded currently with the Chow Daddy sign. We're going to remove the sign and square it off. And finally, to remove the existing lighting here along the top and replace these sconces with something a little more akin to a bank. Along the left side, we're going to remove the current drive-through window and replace it with a drive-up ATM from Chase, and to remove the existing lighting again, like we did on the other side, and replace these sconces. This is the current color palette. The building itself at the moment is a darker color. The UDO actually prefers a low country palette, which is lighter colors, but this is the current, it's currently gray with a lot of darker colors. Of note, black is already used on the roof. The current roof is this standing seam black color here, or blackish gray. The black is proposed to be used along the roof as well as the parapet, wall coping, mechanical and dumpster screening, and the canopies. Per the UDO, black should be used sparingly, but it doesn't say what sparingly exactly is. Also of note is the bright blue color around the Chase ATM. This is also not an explicitly approved color within the UDO or the ZDSO. Staff has no issues or concern with the lighting plan as submitted. The proposed light fixtures are designed to minimize the amount of ambient light perceptible from the adjacent properties. Of note, the photometric readings at the ATM are 13.2 foot candles for security. Same thing on the other side with the main entrance, 12.4 foot candles, 0.0 foot candles along Fording Island Road, and 0.0 foot candles along Town Drive as well, and negligible readings along the property line, meaning 0.01 or less. Landscaping, staff has no issues or concerns with landscaping as submitted. There is no impact to the existing buffer along Fording Island Road. The existing trees on site are being preserved and protected. Existing shrubs and ground cover are to be preserved and protected where possible, and they are also adding additional foundation plantings, like I mentioned before, here along the front and along the sides, and also in these parking islands. This application complies with the review criteria listed here if the conditions are met in letter A. The only staff recommendation we have is to provide for the applicant to provide a letter of approval from the master plan declarant responsible for covenants and restrictions for the community. This evening, the Planning Commission must determine if the following items satisfy the requirements of the UDO and or the ZDSO. Again, the only two things being the color black and the amount used, as well as the color bright blue for the ATM. Sorry for the typo in the slides. Again, your Planning Commission actions this evening: approve the application with conditions, or deny as submitted. This is a suggested motion. And I'll open up to questions. And also the applicant is here represented by Mr. Jason from BG Architects.
Did the applicant wish to speak, or we? We'll start on your end.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the only concerns I see from staff is color palettes, and I just pulled up here the section of the UDO referenced, and it does say that accent color design, for example, black, dark blue, grays, and other dark primary colors may be used on a limited basis as part of an architectural motif at the discrimination of the UDO administrator. So it's acceptable to me. I don't see where we even have grounds to deny it. So.
We can be a jerk about it and make them repaint the roof.
Additionally, I don't have any real concerns about the blue surrounding the ATM machine. It's in a weird spot. It's going to be hard for people to find it. It'll call attention to it. I see lots of ATM machines around that, have those kind kind of bright colors to call their attention. So I'm not stressed too much with that.
I had a question that maybe Lydia also had the question on. The ladder that, on the back of the building, is that necessary to gain access to the roof? And secondary to that, the railing, is all that necessary if the equipment is being moved?
Sir?
Yeah. No, I'm not sure why that's still, I thought that was.
We do need you up to the microphone, sorry. People actually do watch this.
Jason Yarrow with BDG. I'm not sure why, if the mechanical equipment is being moved to the ground while we still have access there, other than it is what's existing in that location.
So if there is no access, is there possibility of removing the ladder and the railing and changing that element up there?
Let me review the drawings. They may not be moving all the rooftop units down. So let me do a quick review of the drawings and see if that's why there's.
Just a question I had. If
Yeah.
there's
No, that would be the only reason I can think it would be.
a ladder on the back of a bank, I'm just thinking, maybe not.
Yeah.
Not the
You're
best.
looking out to protect them, that's all.
Well, that's how they can get rid of the roof.
Yeah.
I did make the comment, disclosure for you, I'm in the HVAC business and I do quite a bit of commercial, that I don't see how the equipment's going to fit in the new enclosure. So that may be either additional or just partial replacement from the roof.
We typically like to go up to a VRF systems when we're doing this for lead purposes, but as I said, let me do a quick review of the drawings and see if I can figure out if that's.
And a
that is
VRF
indeed-
would fit in that yard, yeah.
My only question is the existing roof really is black,
It's yellow.
the roof?
The railing is yellow, the roof is black. That, let's see, go back here.
Very deceiving information.
The roof is black because it was originally
Okay.
a backyard burger.
Okay, and all the existing windows and things are the black
Correct.
as it exists, and the existing coping is black,
I think they're adding additional black coping.
but the existing presumably matches the roof
Yeah,
as it is, so
that
they're
is-
not really adding.
That's a good question, I don't know.
Black, it's already there. I'm just saying that because we have denied black in other circumstances, because it's really not a preferred or appropriate low country palette in the HCOD, but because it's an existing condition, they're just coordinating with what's there.
I had that challenge too, that I had to work through.
Yeah.
That three-letter company that we told.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I like I said, the color palette was my concern, and I knew that was gonna be brought up about the ladder, so, again, if they can get that, some answers to that, if they need it still there or not. Good question.
I'd entertain a motion.
Someone, if you would bring it to that page, that would be great.
I'll make a motion to approve the condition. I move to approve the conditions and determinations recommended by staff. Yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Item number 5 on new business. Thank you, sir. Item number 5 on new business, Livewell Terrace. It's a workshop with no action, a request by Livewell Terrace LP, Woda Cooper Group, with authorization from the property owner, Beaufort Memorial Hospital, for the acquisition of 60 residential dwelling units owned by the town of Bluffton and held in the town's development rights bank, and a 100% density bonus pursuant to section 6.5.4 of the Unified Development Ordinance for the affordable/workforce housing project to be known as Livewell Terrace, located at 335 Buckwalter Parkway and identified as Beaufort County tax map noted in the agenda. Mr. Arcide.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. We are here, this is a workshop opportunity, as we have up here, for a first official presentation of this project. This is meant, it's just for information. There will be no vote tonight. So I'm going to run through a presentation. Applicant is here, Mr. Nestor, can provide any additional feedback you may have. So as we stated, we're here this evening for two requests. The first one is going to be the transfer of RDUs, or development residential dwelling units, from the town's development rights bank. And this would go to the applicant, which actually would go through Beaufort Memorial Hospital, as well as the authorized applicant, which is Woda Cooper Group. And this is for it's going to be a 120 unit apartment complex, specifically for affordable workforce component to it. And we're also requesting that there's a 100% density bonus that's outlined in our UDO. And I'll go to it in a little bit more detail here in just a second. Just for a couple of images here from a vicinity map, you see the subject property. This is located across from Buckwalter Place. Here is a little bit higher out. You can see a couple of the adjacent neighborhoods. Woodbridge to the north. Also to the north, which is under construction right now, is Novant Health has started the construction of their emergency department and medical office building at Parkside in Buckwalter. The towns of Buckwalter is to the south. As we said, Buckwalter Place to the west. Again, another aerial you can see. It's highlighted here. Majority of the property is planted pines as well. And then just a couple of boundary maps as well. So it's 10 acres as of right now. The property has 10 acres of general commercial development rights associated with it. This property was purchased by Beaufort County from St. Andrews by the Sea for $3.2 million. And you can see the ordinances that were listed here. Just trying to give you a timeline as to how we've got to where we are today. And then county updated this ordinance and then conveyed it to Beaufort Memorial Hospital with some certain provisions. And then Beaufort Memorial requested to the town council to acquire 60 of the RDUs that we currently own in our development bank. And that was provided to you as an attachment from January. And then we also have, there's an additional 6,000 square foot medical office building that would be proposed on this site. So in addition to those 60 RD units that we have, they're seeking a 100% density bonus, which we had to, there's a statement in the development agreement that allows for provisions for to incentivize affordable housing. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we already have established a process, which is through the UDO. So we're being consistent with our goals that we have right now. That if you were to do a 100% affordable housing project, that you get that full density bonus. So we're going to give them 60 units. They're going to double those units, and then they'll have 120 units to construct the apartment complex. So we've talked about this information. So also that Beaufort Memorial has agreed that once they have clearly established their medical office building, any of whatever rights that they need for that commercial development, they'll use those rights, and then whatever's left over would then come to the town and be part of that town's density bank. So we've reviewed this based off of our comprehensive plan, and it's provided in your staff report. I'm not going to go into great detail unless you need me to, but there was multiple items that we had. And just through the blueprint where it's just, we talk about incentivizing the need for diverse housing options. So this is a great example of us following the comprehensive plan, which is wonderful. And then we're working with nonprofit groups. So Beaufort Memorial is working with Woda Cooper in order to facilitate this. This is what they work on. They do affordable housing projects. So there's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel. They're going to be able to work on this project pretty quickly. So we talked about some of those provisions, and so when town council expressed their support, we had all of the provisions that to move forward with this, and I'll just kind of talk about them. That those 120 units will be held in the development right bank until they are released. So at time of building permit application is when, in essence, we kind of say, we're giving you the units right now before you apply for your building, or when you apply for your building permits, and then we're in essence taking them right off the books. What that does is it prevents us from, like, we're not going to give them all the units up front, and then who knows what happens. And then they have all the units, but then nothing gets built. So they get them, it's a rolling assignment. So as soon as one building permit's coming in for the building, then they're all coming online. That will have the affordable housing covenants will be reviewed and it'll be drafted, reviewed by the town, and will be reported in the Register of Deeds. We talked about none of these units can be transferred anywhere else. So that, again, the commercial rights, they can't use those rights to transfer out. So that's part of this agreement. And then we just talked about the assignment, again, the assignment of rights, where it'll be determined, you know, whatever they need to use for the medical facility, they'll use it, and as soon as that's done, that they will give the rest of the rights back to the town. So there's a two-step process that we're going through. Obviously, right now is with the transfer of development rights. So the transfer of the development rights aspect of it, and then approval of the density bonus through the amendment to the development agreement and concept plan. So tonight, and I think I've got a chart here, this might help to explain it a little bit better. So we have two paths that we're working on, the transfer of development rights, and you can see we're here on June 25th. This is the workshop meeting. The development agreement amendment and concept plan amendment do not need workshops. That's why while we're kind of referring to them right now, we're not necessarily discussing that item at this workshop, but those items will be in front of you, and we'll be back in front of you next month with all three items for discussion. So the intent is that that we have the next meeting, which will be a public hearing on the 23rd. And then what we're doing is due to the complexity of this project, due to the applicant trying to receive certain tax credits, we're on a rather accelerated timeframe. This is not something that we normally do for projects, but in this case, we felt that it was appropriate for us to assist with them to work through this project as quick as we can. So you'll see right here where it says Town Council first reading. So what we're doing is we will bring this to Town Council in July for a first reading on their transfer of development rights, as well as the development agreement and concept plan. As you guys know, first reading, in essence, will almost be a first reading by name, and then we'll still have to hold a public hearing for those items. So, you know, just so it's noted that normally the progression is Planning Commission recommendation, then first reading, then second. We're actually going to go do a Planning Commission first reading, and then Town Council first reading, Planning Commission recommendation, and then Town Council second reading. So my understanding is that from a time frame, that in order for the tax credits to work, that it has to be taken care of relatively quickly. I believe October, November, in order for them to get to the point where they can start to go for building permits. So we're working, we've got other items that we have from a building permit process that we're working through. But we're really trying to work with them in order to get this facilitated. So those are kind of the next steps. I'm happy to answer any questions. Applicants here to answer any questions, and feel free to open the dialogue.
They're going to go for building permits within 3 months of getting their...
I understand where you're going, Will.
How does that happen?
I understand where you're going. We are, so what's not shown on this portion of the process is we are working with the applicant for us to start to review their development plans. We have set it up to where that project will come back to you in August. So the goal is that the first and second readings have established. We're going to establish that second reading with Town Council. So hopefully it's all approved. And then at the August town council meeting, you guys will actually be reviewing the preliminary development plan. So staff has been working with the applicant for a while now. We've been reviewing their plans from an informal standpoint. The applicant's engineer has actually worked through the engineering plans some time ago. So it's not that they've already started that process. So this project will be in front of you June, July, and then again in August.
So they've already done NOIs and submitted to CGC for stormwater and all that?
I'm going to let the applicant speak on that portion of it, so.
We're working on that this week.
Okay, good luck. Yeah. I'm just saying. Good luck getting through CGC in 3-4 months.
I'm Alice Thompson, with WODA, the developer. So we have been told the CCC does prioritize affordable housing, so we're hoping that works in our favor. To get through that process a little bit quicker, but as far as SC housing and the tax credits go, we do have to, and because this is a bond deal, we do have to close on the project by the end of November.
We'll just work down the line. You're up, Rich.
Oh, good.
Good.
Yeah. No more.
Just for my own understanding, when people get the credit for affordable housing and they get the additional units, does that come from the town's bank or those are kind of created units?
The density bonus, the incentive?
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Good explanation.
Yes.
I was just, I asked Dan this question previously, but just what is the percentage of gross, median income?
Do you know the direct numbers, percentage-wise of? I don't, we can definitely provide that to you, but there is a mix, and Bree, I don't know if you know off the top of your head either. But I know there's a mix that goes.
It's in the report.
It's the 80s, 60s, and down, so it is.
Yeah, good.
I think that, a big part of receiving those tax credits is that you have to have the lower level of AMI.
That's good.
Well, and to piggyback on that, once these are workforce housing, are they forever workforce housing or are they like?
It's a 30-year. Yeah, 30-year.
Okay. Because I know some of the Section 8 stuff that was built around here, after about 10 years, it went.
Housing choice voucher, that's the term to use. It's housing choice.
You answered that. The only other question I have is, and this may not apply, but have you looked into the new town incentives for that are out there for west of Buckwalter? I know this is barely east of Buckwalter, but like for medical facilities and so on.
I'm aware of that, yes. I think that's something that we can definitely look into. I think the biggest thing was actually getting through the development agreement aspect of it, just so we're not, we need to make sure that's established first. But happy to do that. I know our town council is very adamant about working with everyone. We bring it to their attention. So, I mean, it's a.
This is huge.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying anything we can do to help, even though Walter Nestor's a part of it.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Well,
No,
a
I'm glad
great
to see you're
example
part
of help is this right here, where we've expedited this process.
Well, I remember being a 20-something with 2 kids and not being able to afford a place to rent around here. I can only imagine what it's like now, so glad to see this.
Yeah, I am.
Any other questions, comments?
No, and we'll be back, again, we'll be back in front of you next month. Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Great, thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Walter Nestor. I'm with the Burr Foreman Law Firm, and we really do appreciate how hard staff has been working to expedite this process. I know it's not traditional, but there a lot of effort has been put in to make this happen, and we appreciate not only the commissioners, but also staff and their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, guys, with that agenda item done, is there any other item for discussion y'all want to have, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.